Hello and welcome to episode 279 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 17th of April 2019. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I'm joined by Alex Wiltshire.
Hello.
Tom Francis.
Hello.
And my slightly too high microphone stand. Just a second.
Ease it down.
That's better. That's better. I can now relax into my podcast slump. And speaking of podcast slumps, I'm sorry we missed an episode next week.
Last week.
Next. Shit. No, we're not missing next week, I don't think.
There might be a
We'll find out. No, last week is the one I mean. Time. Yeah, that's how that works. Forwards. Not omnidirectionally. Sorry we missed it. Time is meaningless.
So it's okay in many
Explains
ways.
Yeah.
We'll just do it in 2 weeks' time and we'll go back in time and put it there.
Right, yeah, I mean, well, exactly. We're doing episode 279 now, so did we miss it? The answer is no.
Case closed.
Exactly. Thanks, Tom. So, in the news this week is City of Heroes again, but for a kind of amazing reason. Alex, you revealed this story to me earlier.
Yeah, I broke the story.
Ooh, what's this I'm throwing towards you? What's this? It's the book.
I got a steaming news turd for you.
We're going to go with something more metaphorical than that, but okay.
Hot off the presses.
I was amused and interested in this story, and I thought I'd tell you about it. City of Heroes, which
The best
most
MMO.
beloved. You two have played it. I have not.
It's the only one I
Most
really got
beloved.
into.
Yeah, MMO from what was the pub?
Cryptic.
Cryptic, yeah.
And NCSoft.
Yeah. But it was closed down in 2012, I believe.
Yeah, man.
Whereupon its small but engaged, super engaged audience, some members of, managed to somehow take enough files, enough internet stuff, and enough like pictures and codes and things,
Pictures and internet stuff.
and reconstruct it upon a server of their own invention. Of which they essentially play the game and have been playing it on the quiet for the past 6 years.
Which is incredible. So there have been other attempts to emulate City of Heroes, and they've been variously unsuccessful and not complete, and I believe, obviously challenged because not precisely a legal thing to do. I believe, the secret one is called SCORE, SCORE.
It's such a good initiative.
And it stands for the Secret Cabal of Reverse Engineers, which is amazing. And so, yeah, I don't know what the current state of this is in the community because I'm obviously not that au fait with the City of Heroes community, but it appears to have obviously really divided people because on one hand, an actual perfect emulator does exist. On the other hand, it was kept secret from the community so it wouldn't get shut down for 6 years. So therefore,
until someone came along, basically
Someone
it was
leaked
discovered. Yeah, it was discovered by a former fan of the game who figured that it had been and gone, and that was that.
Stop having fun without us!
Oh, you've been playing all this time?
Yeah.
He had ultimate FOMO.
I like the...
That's actually a hero in City of Heroes.
That's actually a really good City of Heroes character name. Yeah.
Wherever there is fun,
He's not there. Oh, that'd be amazing. Do the first 3 Ultimate FOMO movies and then leave him out of the Avengers. It just doesn't show up at all.
Oh, good.
Just in the post-credits. Yeah, the person in your raid is only in the post-credit scene. That would be the thing, right? Maybe this is a bit off topic, but City of Heroes was so sort of great because it captured what was fun about making a superhero in a very in a world that was open to every single kind of superhero all at once. And so you could just sort of do anything and it had fun with that in character creation. And, it had a sort of a fan's understanding of how superheroes break down into types by origin and type of power and things. So you can be a wizard or a robot man wizard or an alien or, you know what I mean? Or, a mutant or any of these sort of archetypes. But at the time outside of comics, that wasn't necessarily how superheroes worked in pop culture. I appreciate obviously Actually, no, it was shut down in 2012. So it did overlap, obviously, with the beginnings of the
Avengers stuff.
Marvel universe. The first Avengers movie was 2011, I think. So
It was, I think by the time it shut down, it was very much forgotten. I mean,
Yeah,
It
right.
wasn't in the news until it shut down.
But it's fascinating the kind of, like, when I was writing about Roblox, there are quite a few superhero MMOE games in making
right.
Roblox where you make a character and you can have it, like, from these building blocks of different powers, running quickly or flying, whatever. It's like there's this sort of latent interest in that. And I don't know how many of them directly riffed originally off City of Heroes. You'd think that it would be a little bit too old a game for a lot of the people who are
I
making
think so,
it.
yeah. But it's like, it feels like almost the world, the ways, how ubiquitous superheroes are now and how particularly ubiquitous that sort of team up idea is. It's kind of surprising that there isn't a game that caters to this, the thing that it did, because
They did Champions Online afterwards, right?
They did, yeah.
Which was that still in NCSoft, but a different developer? It was Bill Roper of Diablo fame. I can't remember actually what the studio was, whether it was Cryptic or whether it was something else.
And sometimes City of Villains was great as well, which is the sort of expansion pack that sort of flipped it on its head, which was, I mean, you're still doing largely the same things, but it was like, it was really good.
Yeah, it was like you fought other villains.
You do spend a lot of time fighting other villains, yeah.
I had a problem. I tried making it wasn't a scrapper, it was like the villain version of that, like a brute, I think it was. And it was a good idea for a class where like you build rage by doing your attacks and stuff, and I think it makes you more and more powerful. But it completely conflicted with every other class that I was trying to play with, because when we'd just beat up like 5 guys, I desperately needed to get onto the next fight to capitalize on all my rage before it faded away, and everyone else needed to stop and rest. And so I was always stuck in this awkward situation of like, let's go guys, let's go! You rested yet? Come on.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I'm not going to be angry in a second, so...
Yeah, it's like, I think also, maybe it's telling you a bit of a eulogy for City of Heroes now that it's actually died or whatever, like, or it was alive the entire time. I'm not sure. It's a very comic book thing to happen, actually.
Yeah.
All this time.
Secretly alive.
Its secret bunker beneath.
Yeah. But I think it was also the first MMO that I played where it really, it was movement for movement's sake to a great extent. Like, I think there's no, well, I was going to say maybe there's no Anthem without City of Heroes, but I'm not sure, whether there's a direct inspirational link there, but there's obviously a really big, the notion that you have fun moving around and then go do your mission or land to beat up some goons and then fly off again is a really sort of...
Did you go for flying?
My character was the jumping guy.
Yeah, I did jumping first.
Yeah.
Sounds so lame.
It is. It is lame.
That wasn't his name, right?
Jumping guy. No, I can't remember what my character was. No, my character was a scrapper, I think. Like a jumping scrapper.
Jumping scrapper, that's my first.
Interesting, yeah.
Scrapper being a fighty
Melee
man.
Yeah, like
Wolverine.
really fast attack. Yeah, very much.
Like, Tom was about to finish that whole sentence. Wolverine is the answer. Yeah. I think, I sort of very steadily accidentally made Wolverine, like decision by decision, apart from the big jumps. That was the only thing that was very different.
Wolverine, but jumps.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and also I really like the idea that, it's been secretly around for a while because I don't know what other defunct MMOs are secretly still running.
Well, one of the things that did come up in there was a tabula rasa I can't remember what the name was. It was like, it was a really good play on its name that kind of, which means blank slate or,
Yeah, right.
Thing. But Tabula Rasa was continued to be played until it was shut down because it contravened all the copyright stuff.
Yeah. And obviously, like you mentioned before we started recording, Alex, but like there is a sort of a swell of feeling, even if it's not fully thought through, that this stuff should just be open and free. And available.
Could they not just let it go? By that, I mean, couldn't the developers / IP owners let this happen rather than...
Yeah, I suppose...
I know there's stuff about defending your copyright and...
There's also the archiving nature of this stuff as well, sort of is a legitimate sort of creative work, which is completely non-existent, if it's not actually played,
Yeah, especially for MMOs. Like, with a single-player game, as long as someone's got to download a copy, it can still be played. Whereas MMOs, the server is typically something that no player has.
Yeah, right.
Once the developer takes it away, the game is gone.
I quite like the idea of just letting people run servers if they want, because it means it's like putting the source book for pen and paper RPG out, even if you no longer plan to release new material or update the rules. It's like, if you can run this with your friends, just go run it with your friends. Like,
I guess there's issues where, like, if someone runs this and uses it as a way to, like, scrape people's personal data or give them a virus or something, it's, you know, it's their IP that's kind of the face of that. And so they'd be, I don't know if they would be legally responsible, but they would get...
It feels like it's a legal problem. Like it's as if the first company that comes up with the boilerplate, you know, terms and conditions, you know, that manages to solve all the problems with, you know, the scenario that you put out and the connection with a live IP and that company's ability to build on this property in the future and blah, 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 while giving, you know, you know, letting it free out, you know, into the world. It feels like the company that manages to solve that legal challenge or that problem, you know, might just be the start of a dam. Because I think that any company that does do that would get such amazingly good, you know, response.
Yeah.
You know,
and I always think
goodwill that would, you know, roll back on them. Yeah.
And it feels like it would, you know, rather than competing with the products you're actually making money from, I feel like it would sort of keep the flame alive if you ever do a sequel or anything, that there's these people who've been playing it that long. And
well, it's like sort of, you know, it happens in the premium world where, you know, often when a new part of a series comes out, the previous game is put on special offer, you know, and it, you know, costs $5 and the new game is about to come out
do a
for
free
$50.
weekend or something.
You know, and this old game is still a good game and like it offers tens of hours of play, and yet it still promotes the new game, you know, and that's, I guess that would happen here.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the issue is if you have even like a boilerplate legal text or a terms of service thing that runs, you know, you say you can emulate this as much as you like, but your server has to have this, you know, disclaimer in front of it when people load it up that says that any experience they have is not the responsibility of the original developer, something like that. Then the issue is who enforces that and whose job is it to troll servers? You know what I mean? Do you employ one person whose job it is to go looking for abuses of this system? That's, you know, it becomes an infinite kind of task, at which point maybe it's easier to simply legislate against it. However, legislating against it clearly doesn't really work or make anyone happy because it happens anyway. So,
and with World of Warcraft, it eventually pushed Blizzard to, well, it wasn't so much it wasn't like in a weird way, it was similar because it's like the original World of Warcraft was what they wanted back and it didn't exist anymore. And Blizzard had a way, more legit reason for not, having that themselves. In that, you know, they're trying to move the game forwards and, build on it. But, the unauthorized WoW vanilla server, which they shut down at some point, did they ever, like, reauthorize it or something, come to some agreement? Because I know eventually they decided to do their own one. They're just using a WoW vanilla thing that Blizzard are doing officially now. But I had some memory that they sort of they went back on that and allowed it because there was such a big backlash.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
Yeah. And there's it's not quite the same, but there's the RuneScape situation where new RuneScape was, you know, it's nice in 3D. It's actually, you know, not horrific looking and it doesn't look like has the worst UI in the world. And, you know, people wanted to play the old RuneScape. And so you have these two versions just sort of playable at the same time, you know, and still most of the attention, I don't know what the division between players is, but like the attention, most of the videos about RuneScape today are based on the old version.
Yeah, right. It's funny, like I think maybe developers underestimate the importance of nostalgia to MMOs, particularly like the places people remember hanging out, so they want to go back as they were, really.
Yeah.
Like, are there vanilla TF2 servers out there?
There must be, surely.
Yeah, I remember that being a big one. People bitched about, like, I don't understand. It's everyone covered in piss.
Kind of brutal as a developer. It's like, people love our game, but they hate everything we did to it.
All of the work we've done for the last 8 years is apparently trash.
Yeah. And, you know, rocking up with like, we're making some amazing plot developments. We've blown up the world and rebuilt it better. And no, I want to go home.
Like, unblown up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or like the kind of the meta plot of like, you can fix Azeroth, but it involves pirating this emulated server from like, and then guess what? Nothing bad ever happened.
There was one round of feedback we did with Heat Signature while it was in development, where it was like, I think it's like 4 months since the last one. And I was asked people in their feedback to give it a review score, and we averaged those out and, see how we're doing. And it was the first time ever that went down. It was like, last 4 months of the work, I've just made the game worse. It was actually, it turned out to be just like one really, really bad decision, which was easily fixed. Right. And the rest of the game had got better, but I just massively fucked up the progression system.
You shouldn't have added that clown car noise every time you pressed space. It just wasn't the right decision.
It's the only way to progress. Gotta honk at least 8 times a second. It makes a stealth game a lot harder.
It's diegetic sound as well. Yeah. If you like to pause time, honk the clown head. When you're followed by a clown, you honk his nose. That's what stops time for you. But he constantly suggests what you should be doing rather than letting you experiment. That just made it a lot worse. There you go. Yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
It was a mistake in retrospect. You can see why we didn't ship with it.
Yeah, is that all we have to say about the City of Heroes scenario? It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yep. City of Heroes was good.
Yep. That still is, apparently.
Apparently for some it still is. I guess, now is it over?
I don't know. I didn't scroll to the end of this Polygon article, but I will put it in the show notes.
Look, it's a fast-moving, developing, breaking news situation, so we'll have to leave it to you to
keep talking. I'm scrolling. Oh no, I'm scrolling the wrong window.
Scrolling the recording.
But there is one other aspect of it I was kind of interested in, because there's this anger from the person or the people who discovered that it was running all the time and they hadn't realized, which feels in its abstract, from the abstract, like a little entitled to feel that there was something that I should be part of. Yeah. And also this community.
If they'd publicized it, it would have been shut down ages ago.
Yeah,
right?
You don't all get to come to my party.
I am mad when I find out there was a party I wasn't invited to, though. Just anywhere in the world.
You heard it first here, listeners. You're responsible for Tom's ultimate FOMO. The article concludes, which is by Cass Marshall, by the way, concludes by saying that Score's developers intend to keep developing the project in secret, and they do not intend to share a project report, and the NDA will remain in full effect. Which is this sort of like, go away.
They're slamming the doors. Yeah.
Nothing to say.
It's like the little kind of latch opens behind the little sort of, no, go away.
Yeah. Sounds fun in there. Shut up. And that's that.
NCSoft, silent and massive, and never said a word about it, apparently.
Right. Maybe they learned from Blizzard.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They just crushed them with lawyers.
We should talk about what we've been playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could do.
Oh, enthusiasm level Wednesday. Tom?
Yeah.
Pick a game, any game.
I played shitloads of things, so I'll talk about some things quickly. One is Beat Saber.
I played a lot of Beat Saber.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone told me it was good, and then it was. Anyway, that's the end of that segment. I was interested in it because I wanted to try and, I wanted to see if it was good exercise. Because I remember I used to play Hollow Point, which is an archery game, and that was certainly got me sweaty after a certain.
So to clarify, Beat Saber is a VR game, just my way of pointing out.
Yes. Yeah. I'm playing it on Vive, so it's a stand up and not so much walk around, but certainly thrash around game.
Yeah.
And I played Beat Saber and I loved it. It's a game where you basically have a lightsaber in each hand and you're just swiping at blocks as they come past you, and the blocks are timed to the track that you're playing. So it has a kind of Audio Surf, vibe to it. I seem to remember the Audio Surf guy did Audio Shield in VR.
Yeah.
And I didn't play that.
That was about catching beats on your shield arms, I think.
I'm curious to see that now, because when you play Beat Saber, it's so obviously, oh yeah, this is what Audio Surf should be in VR. Yeah. It's extremely satisfying to slice through blocks with lightsabers, and doing that to music is even cooler. And I played the campaign, which kind of eases you into it, and I was enjoying it a lot, but I didn't think it was especially good exercise. And then I tried, I decided like it has loads of customization options. So usually you have to hit the blocks from a particular direction and it varies with different blocks, but you can turn that off. And I thought I want to try like a harder level, but turn off that off. So I don't have to worry about direction. I just have to hit them all in some way, which is like 10 times easier. And then when I tried, I didn't even go up to like the hardest level. I went up to just hard. And boy, that is good at exercise. Jesus fucking Christ.
Do you leave obstacles on?
Yes.
Because you get these like sort of like blocks that also you have to kind of like dodge and weave around.
I forgot the coolest thing about VR, which is, that, you know, when you're playing a game like this, when it's a sort of, these are kind of sports already. When you're playing one of these, it's a new thing you're doing with your body. And the incredible thing is how quickly you learn it. Like when I'm playing a new game like Sekiro or like skill-based stuff where I really have to like ingrain it in my reactions, my actual like the parts of my body that need to do it well are very limited, but they have to do it extremely well. And I'm very slow to learn. I get almost not perceptibly better at these games when I play them over and over again. And every VR sport that I've played, you know, my skill level after like 10 minutes versus my skill level after 20 minutes is just night and day. Just, you get good at something so quickly and it's so satisfying. You just like, your body just sort of, gets kind of programmed to, you know, deal with things and to process visual information and react to it in all these instinctive ways that feel so cool when you pull them off. And you just learnt this like 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like, it does feel like cheat codes for sport because it's like, it's just sort of often it's just small elements of understanding of how the environmental controls of the physics work and little sort of bits of sort of, finesse with your, you know, movements, but it never challenges your strength, for example. You don't have the sport thing of like, I've learned a new sport, but I need to get stronger over the course of months in order to get better at this or whatever. It's just, or fitter or, I mean, being fitter probably helps, but it's like, you can go from being like, I don't know, something like super hot, like, I can't reliably throw this axe into a guy's head. I can do it every time now, and I've just mastered the knack, and it's extremely gratifying.
Yeah.
I find that Beat Saber doesn't really resemble either hitting things with lightsabers or dance.
No.
Like, it's interesting, like,
you can't really afford to dance.
No, like, you think, oh, it's sort of like dancing, but with lightsabers because of the rhythm. But it's not. It's like doing the sort of the, you know, in terms of the inessential VR qualifier of like how you look to the outside world while you're doing it. You look like you're doing semaphore for a funky plane. Like that. It's like, you know, you're landing all of them to the beat, but yeah, it's not as it's neither as aggressive nor as dancey as it sounds.
Do you feel cool, or do you have an awareness?
Yeah, in the VR world, you feel amazing. You do know how dumb you look. I lean into that because I know how dumb I look. No one else is around. I keep my blinds shut, but my windows open because it's incredibly hot, and I don't want anybody to see me. And yeah, just look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is like, because like I liked playing it with the obstacles off, but the block directions on hard. Because it's really satisfying to like understand a run of block directions and then nail it, right? Like it's like, but that often means you don't need big movements. Like the blocks aren't huge. You don't need a big cut to get all the way through them. So often you're sort of holding your arms out in front of you and just handling it with like wrist movements. So I'm doing it, and obviously it's a great podcast. Like it ends up as sort of more like conducting an orchestra, but
super fast.
But conducting an orchestra with both hands, with laser swords in a kind of space VR dimension, is basically just cyberpunk Morris dancing. It's
I actually found, because the scoring is like, you get more points for a block if you, I think your lead in swipe has to be at least 90 degrees and your lead out, your sort of follow through has to be at least 60 degrees.
Yeah.
So you've got to do like a sort of a quite, full arc swing. And I have no idea what that looks like. You know, I don't know what degrees I just did, you know, in either aspect. So the only way I ensure it is just do like a really big exaggerated swipe and try and do that quickly. That's when it gets to be good exercise. You just go like a fucking madman.
I think I probably derived a way of playing it that was the least physical.
I was interested, like, from the videos I've seen of Beat Saber, it's a very watchable game, surprisingly, for VR. Like, it's, the audio or the visual feedback seems really good. You know, it seems incredibly sort of reactive, lots of big sparks of colors and stuff as you swipe.
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
I was just interested. So Audio Shield, like, I couldn't see why one of them may have succeeded and the other one not. Like, do you want to be the shield or do you want to be the sword?
Saber, yeah.
I wonder if when Beat Saber came out, I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that? The other cool thing.
Music gun.
I'm sure that exists as well.
Actually, speaking of lightsabers, we didn't mention Respawn's Star Wars game was revealed. Did you guys see the trailer for this?
I did. It did nothing for me, but I'm still excited about the game.
I, and you know me, I do like the doings of the Starmen, but
Tentative episode 9 title.
Yeah, that was my 50p in the ring for what I was going to be. No, it's from my favorite, like, I think it's an Orson Welles quote about the Transformers cartoon, which is like in an interview says, and they even make an entire cartoon, entire films about the doings of these toys. And that's one of my favorite quotes about like pop culture from the late 80s onwards, because it's like, that's awful. That's all culture. Basically, all superhero movies. Also, it's like just the doings of the toys. I mean, that's video games as well.
The toys.
It's a good Orson Welles.
I don't know if anyone remembers that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a really deep cut that won't land.
Yes. Yeah. But like, anyway.
Star Wars trailer.
Yeah. I feel like the trailer itself didn't do loads for me.
No.
Because, I don't know, like, it's a plot trailer. It doesn't really give you much in terms of what you'll do in the game.
But you know, you'd think that a plot trailer, especially for Star Wars, you might move, especially a heart such as yours.
I think
it's a low, there's low hanging fruit, I think, for Star Wars.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, you know, it really reminds me of, Dark Forces, actually. You know, young Jedi on the run. Young ginger Jedi on the run
but it looked, there's something about the way things moved. It reminded me of Force Awakens. Like it felt like
Force Unleashed?
Era. Force Unleashed, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it has a little whiff of that. I think the reality of, really liking Star Wars a lot for me is it's the only thing I really love where I really don't like at least half of it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's weird to say this, but like, you know, I'm happy with every new Star Wars movie that comes out because it reduces the percentage of the total number of Star Wars movies that are irreconcilable garbage. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, and that is a weird position to be in when you're a fan of something. But like, you know, similarly, I have consumed so much old expanded universe Star Wars material in my life. And chewed it up and spat it out and make nests out of it like a little hamster. That like, it is easy for me to be unmoved by a story that's quite familiar like that. Like you know, I'm a bit disappointed that it's sort of like, young man hero. Like Star Wars has actually been pretty good at introducing new heroes to that. And
it's just, I fucking hate his face.
Yeah, that was a big part of it for me as well.
And similarly, like that story of like Jedi trying to survive in the years prior to the rebellion and stuff has kind of been told both out of canon and in canon recently. Like the Rebels cartoon is really good and is that story as well. So it doesn't feel like very new territory. And, I'm also wary of the Star Wars games need to have a Jedi in them impulse, that has meant that we haven't had a return to things like X-Wing or TIE Fighter or even the original Dark Forces, which was ultimately just you're a rebel spy game. You know, it feels like you're kind of not allowed to make a Star Wars game unless, you know, someone ignites a lightsaber in it.
Well, after Han Solo, you know, Solo didn't do well, you know.
Even though they
got to have a Jedi in it.
They got a lightsaber ignition in that film one way or another. Like,
that's true.
Yeah, it was, anyway. But like, you know, there's that element of it. And that's not to say, the thing that makes me excited about it is simply that it's a Respawn single player game.
Well,
and
you say
Titanfall 2
that.
is amazing, so.
But it was just that, like, they got a wall running thing in it. And it's just sort of like, and my brain just sort of went, but that's not Star Wars.
That was in Jedi Knight though.
Was it?
Jedi Knight games? Back me up here,
Yeah,
Chris.
you can wall run in Jedi Knight.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's
So
all
it
right.
wasn't
It's all
crossing
right.
streams.
It's all right. It's
I cite precedent, Jedi versus Wall, 1924.
exactly. Yeah. I was trying to figure out if there was a joke in like Jedi Titan Fallen Order. But there isn't. Alex's face is just wrinkled inwards.
It didn't it? It was then there was a charitable smirk.
So yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing.
That's actually a character in a new Star Wars game.
But I say all this. I will play it. Yeah. I will buy and play it. Yeah. So I will say this. There's a strange sort of, EA came out and said, that's right, everyone. Fully single player, no microtransactions.
Oh gosh, yes, we should have talked about this. Yeah,
That's a weird play.
Really
that's
weird
a
play.
weird play. Like,
Interestingly, it came from the EA Star Wars accounts.
Yes,
which
right.
Is, who controls that? That's just, like, I would like to know.
Well, so I read the interview with Amy Hennig about it.
Right.
Did you see this? Because obviously she was working on a single player only Star Wars game, and it was canned for being a single player only Star Wars game. And she mentioned that because she said that basically it must be part of basically the way she said it was like, well, it came from that account, so it must be part of the strategy. It made it sound like the EA Star Wars account, whoever does control that, was part of the unit that she was, working for.
Yeah, and I think she explicitly said it's a bit annoying.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
my game got closed down for the reasons that this is being celebrated.
Yeah,
it's a weird flex.
I mean, she did say this as well, that the whole landscape has changed since then. Like, even just in general, but also especially Battlefront 2 and the backlash there, where like Disney,
got involved,
had to like step in.
It's a weird one for a few reasons. It's weird because it's not like a different company doing it. It's a company that did the thing people didn't like in the first place. Yeah. So celebrating that they're not doing something, which has actually been
Meanwhile, being made by a company which is happily doing loot stuff like on its other game.
Yeah, right. Paid for by Apex Legends. Like
I wondered if, like this deal must have been in place for a while. I wonder if like, Respawn, made this deal when they didn't know Apex Legends was going to be as big as it was. Yeah, right. Maybe they were a bit like, we didn't need this actually.
No, maybe the deal was, you made Titanfall 2, you made an excellent single player campaign, and you made a multiplayer game that is still doing all right, but it was never going to be a massive, like, Battlefield beating or Call of Duty beating success. Tell you what, guys, we're going to let you do 2 games. You can do a Battle Pass friendly, Battle Royale game. And if you do that, we will let you make Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes more sense.
It's like, it's a funny one. The other funny thing is that like, this has sort of been the story of all of EA's communication about, their Star Wars games. Cause it's like, we've got the license, we're making Battlefront. Oh, people are angry there isn't single player. So the announcement of Battlefront 2 was like, and they were angry it was Galactic Civil War only. So the announcement of Battlefront 2 was like, guess what, everyone? We've undid the things you didn't like. And that's
it's everything to all people now.
Yeah, exactly. And that is also a weird sort of play in a way, because I think it has an interesting relationship with the value of, or the actual, not value, the efficacy of backlashes, right? It was not fan uprising or uproar that ended, loot boxes in Battlefront and more broadly. It was probably the moment someone at Lucasfilm picked up the phone. It's, and obviously there's a relationship, but it is not one to one. And, this has, there's been debates recently about things like, review bombing and other forms of sort of players kind of, involved. And it's not to say that players shouldn't express how they feel about decisions the companies make, but often you can point to a very specific thing that steers the decision-making process that happens. Like, it's, they said at the time that the reason they ended up putting a single player campaign in Battlefront 2 is because John Boyega, who plays Finn in the movies, complained, like on Twitter, so it's not, it's weird, this sort of, not necessarily, it is pandering, I think. It is pandering to like say like, we're not doing that shitty thing you will get angry about. It almost validates some of that outrage, which can be often misdirected and end up, making lives harder for developers that don't make these decisions. It almost validates the devs aren't listening or the devs don't care narrative to say like, this time we give a shit. Like, I don't know. It's a bit uncomfortably for me, that line. But I will nonetheless, buy and play this, spaceman doing product.
I always wonder if like, it would make more sense for a company like EA to have these separate studios and just give them like, just really downplay their ownership of them. Cause like, having them all under the same umbrella, I imagine the upside of that is partly to do with like shareholders and being able to sort of, accumulate and, aggregate, like keep all these things together so that overall your quarter is always pretty strong and you mitigate a lot of the risk and you always have something coming out. And that's good for your stock price and stuff. But on an individual basis, for gamers these days, at least, it feels like it's much more likely that your name gets tarnished than it gets boosted. Like people out of like EA, Ubisoft and Blizzard and most of the major publishers, like no one has a good reputation anymore. Like they're all in the garbage. Like everyone's mad at them for something or
particularly
other.
in the whole at the moment, I think. Like it definitely feels that their name is one of the most
I mean,
vilified.
on Reddit at least they have been for forever. And Ubisoft, were, you know, most hated company in the world for a while after they introduced their DRM thing.
I feel like
in
Ubisoft's
gaming circles anyway.
Ubisoft didn't like they took that title from EA and EA got it back. Not to say that Ubisoft are wholly the good guys, but I think Ubisoft is the one that stands out to me as consistently avoiding this. Like obviously there are mistakes and things people don't like, but they chug along. Like now that things like DRM have been broadly accepted, it feels to me like they have, and there were things like last year, like the or was it earlier this year, the Assassin's Creed Odyssey DLC story stuff that people got upset about for good reasons. But beyond those few things, there isn't that sort of knee-jerk, instant assumption that an EA game is bad, for example, that haunts EA and that they really struggle to shake.
I just wonder if in both cases it would be in their interest to de-emphasize their own ownership of their, and just say like, this is a, Far Cry studio game and this is a, Star Wars game and this is a...
Yeah, I mean, you know, imagine if we lived in the world where, you know, EA had either not gone down this path of, moving all their studios onto a single technology base and, a single almost like design base in terms of the service idea, or like a, you know, a common sort of philosophy to game creation, and had instead sort of constructed like walled gardens around particular kind of disciplines. So here's FIFA team, here's Battlefield team, here's BioWare, for example. I feel like their output would look very different. Here's Maxis doing Sims and SimCity, right? Like, I you know, it's very easy to backseat, you know, manage these companies to some extent, but I feel like
Possibly EA do though.
No, they don't, because that's...
Do they always put their name, or is when the game is identified by the rest of, you know, everything outside EA's name, because it's so controversial, is always put in front? Because they do, like BioWare is BioWare. Like BioWare never talks about EA, do they?
No, but I mean, you've presumably read like what's happened to BioWare over the last couple of years, right?
Which is sort of centered
what
on...
I mean is, like, I'm not talking about in terms of public perception. I'm talking about in terms of
communication.
Actual, you know, no, just the operations of those studios.
Right.
Like, you know, they were sat, you know, let's say 2012, let's say the end of the Mass Effect trilogy. If you, which is also sort of, I'm not sure, I think, Sims 4 came out in 2014. So that period, there was like a period of time where, my experience of working on, you know, covering EA games professionally, like going and visiting places, was very much of, like, you didn't see EA lots. So there was obviously some common threads, but like, there were definitely pockets of, you know, activity happening in different places, and the sort of, that unification, was probably happening at the time, but you certainly hadn't felt it yet. And I can imagine that company actually having some pretty exciting looking kind of like siloed off little parts of itself, right? Like, you know, FIFA's going to always generate loads. Sims is always going to do really well. And that should, I think, and I may be looking with the benefit of hindsight, people are maybe now understanding, and maybe this Star Wars game is EA's expression of this understanding, that having these sort of, prestige projects, these sort of critically acclaimed, but maybe not monetizable as hell projects, is just good for the sort of like cultural health of a company. And so like BioWare's job really if EA had handled it appropriately, would have been to just generate, you know, like Game Award wins for them. You know what I mean? To be the studio that goes away and produces their Gods of War or their Last of Us games or whatever it is that...
But that probably wouldn't have come back and reflected on EA, and therefore it would just reflected on that little one.
Maybe not.
Because Sony can do that because it reflects on the console, and you know that's what they want to do. They want to sell consoles.
Sure, but it wouldn't have hurt. And it wouldn't have hurt to like, so if they're at a crossroads where one with three paths, and one path is, you know, actively maybe funneling more support or protecting BioWare's resources to allow them to withhold whatever that sort of formula was that team, hold that team together. That's one path. Middle path is maybe don't do anything and just let things chunter along. And the right hand path was move those studios onto common technology, pool tech resources, pool design sensibilities. What that has led to is the extremely high profile and very visible gutting of a studio that people loved, which when you were being voted ridiculously as the worst company in America before that is not a good look. You know what I mean? Like there were several options and several of them weren't produce a new disaster.
Yeah. They're on a smaller scale. There's sort of like the thing that I just don't get is what happened to PopCap, where there's this company that there's just made like tiny but very sort of popular games, like that each one of them just felt beautiful to play, and like, and EA bought it and then it made 2 third-person Battlefield inspired shooters, and that was it.
Well, didn't they was Plants vs Zombies 2 when EA?
Oh, that's right.
Because that was like
Zombie 2.
It was the same game and love, but kind of ruined by the
fucking ruined. Yes. But weirdly, like if I seem to remember, it was like shitloads of ideas in it, but like made unplayable by all the amount of bullshit.
I remember there being very mixed reaction actually, because there was a lot of good stuff in it, but it really was heavily gated by the free to play stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of like
alive,
and that was it. I'm pretty sure that was all that PopCap's done since being bought.
And didn't George Fan get kind of stiffed out of that whole thing, and he get like let go?
Like yeah, he was let go. Yeah.
We don't need this genius creator of most addictive games ever.
Yeah, and
what use could he be to us?
It's easy to, try and narrativize this stuff from the outside because you don't know what really goes on behind the scenes. But at the same time,
let's look at the results, shall we?
But at the same time, though,
should we go back to
what we've been playing? Yeah, that's the Star War.
We've all 3 of us have been playing Heaven's Gaunt.
Who is Heaven's Gaunt?
Heaven's Vault,
Ooh,
a new game by Inkle.
Yeah,
the wordy story.
Yeah, I am a lot less clear on their identity now that I've played both games, because it's
80 days.
It's actually
and Sorcery.
Yeah, and I played that too, and this is different to both in some fairly major ways. So it's a game about deciphering a lost language, and I didn't even know this till I played it, but it's 3D. Like, I'd seen trailers and stuff. It didn't click for me that like, this is a 3D world with 2D sprites in it. Like, your character's a 2D sprite. And it's got a very weird animation style that I was dubious about, even before I played it, where like, to me, before I played it, I would have told you the animation style is like, instead of actually being animated, they sort of fade between frames of like, you're here and then you're over there and you're over there.
Yeah, you're standing, then you're kneeling, then you're looking.
Yeah. And that's true in some cases, but actually it's much more like it's a 3D environment where you are moving around freely as an avatar that happens to be a billboard 2D sprite with ghost feet for some reason. Your feet are invisible and they fade up to your shins, like your opacity fades up to your knees for some reason. And maybe because the animation rate is so low, they're worried that your feet would look weird against the ground. You'd be ice skating too much, but
I think it's not a good alternative. They look like you're floating.
Yeah,
by ironically making you float.
Because you do have feet when you're standing still.
Yeah, sometimes they draw them, sometimes they don't. And then while you're moving smoothly around with your ghost feet, it'll randomly leave well, not randomly, but I think when you stop and start, it leaves a ghost of you and that fades out so there's 2 of you for a while and then that fades out, and it's so weird. It doesn't, me, it does not work.
I almost want to like slow down a bit and unpack how weird it is, because like, I have played an hour, so that's a caveat, like, and Pip has finished it, cause she reviewed it for PC Gamer, I believe. And, Pip loved it. So that's one that, really, really liked it. And I think it's because it is full of its own ideas and everything that it does.
Yeah.
It's set it's a science fiction game in that there are robots and sort of spaceships, but the paths between like planets and stars are really just like almost like bergs of rock looming out of a foggy nebula.
You're in a nebula, aren't you? So
yeah, and you're
connected by
your ship is like a wooden boat with sails that you go down rivers. We can talk about that separately, like rivers of space. It's water, but it's
Yeah,
is it
they
water?
specifically say it's water.
Yeah, but it is like the water of the nebula, which is.
But it's very, very kind of, it's a metaphor.
It is. It's in the same sort of science. It's in the same sort of like, I guess space travel, but through a lens of mythology that links it to Son of the Skies. It's very different aesthetically. It has a sort of a Middle Eastern aesthetic, which is really beautiful.
And the different locations you go to are
Yeah.
very sort of colourfully different.
It has a sort of, and it has a sort of sense of it being the far future with ancient elements that reminds me of like some pretty robust SF science fiction writing. Like there's bits of Ursula Le Guin in it, I think, you know, in a good way, like in a way that I am, you know, so the really positive for me is like, it doesn't, it has its own identity very, very quickly. And that's really, really good. However, and that is connected, I think, to its artistic and presentation decisions, but they are a ride in themselves. You know what I mean? It's like, like you say, obviously it's 2D sprites moving from frame to frame, but exploring a 3D world. Which reminds me of somehow like old PC action games or something where you'd have that sort of technique. You're transparent from the waist down. You leave a ghost behind when you stop, and sometimes you move automatically.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't.
And sometimes the camera is moved automatically in a really inconvenient way. It has all the problems, all the camera problems of a third-person game with very scripted camera angles. It's going to do everything very cinematically, but then it also doesn't do anything very cinematically. It's just kind of awkward.
There's a severe problem, like a choice that they've made, which is to do speech bubbles, and they're connected in the 3D, on the 2D plane, but relating to the 3D view, so that if a third, like an NPC is walking past and moves the camera as they go past, the camera will flick forward, moving the position of the bubble text, and so you can't tell who's talking anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fucking confusing.
I've had some cases where I thought I was narrating to myself, like monologuing, and then I turned around and suddenly a line appeared and it was my robot talking to me.
Oh yeah, sometimes you can't see who's talking because they're out of view. So like, who's saying what here? Like,
there are also decisions like it has it doesn't have voiceover for most text, but you get a sort of voiceover narration.
Yeah. Which is I really like the voiceover.
I like the voiceover as well,
Great.
but I didn't realize until the narrator said "I" for the first time that the narrator is also your character.
Oh really? Oh,
because they're so
that from
differently written. Like, because you have lots of different.
Yeah, I
options.
get a different vibe from them actually.
Yeah, they sort of, the game is really good at creating, I think the game looks brilliant when it's still as well, because it's really nice 2D art. But it obviously looks a bit ropier when it's moving. But it also is constantly creating quite a kind of like elegiac sense of everything. Like Pip, and I'm going to credit this point is credit Pip, because we were talking about it earlier. The purpose of the ghosts when you stop, what Pip loved about them, I'm sort of saying this for her, and maybe she'll be able to do that on the podcast next week, maybe, but, is that it kind of, you know, you're an archaeologist and you're digging up sort of the remains of civilizations, and there's a lot of things in that game that are all about reminding you of the passage of time. We need to talk about the timeline mechanic, for example, which is mental, basically.
Which, basically it shows you every event that you've played through, so you can see when that happened on a line, but it also shows you every event which has been alluded to or mentioned to you.
Just all
going
history.
back. Well, I've like 1,000 years, or it might be
you can zoom out to
10,000. No, it's 10,000 years because
Yeah.
that's that's something.
You can zoom out the timeline to show you the last 10,000 years, and you can zoom it in to show you the last 11 seconds. Yeah. And that's nuts. And so, but what that plays to is this sense of, it's a game about the past, and it's a game about like the traces that are left behind by civilizations and things. So, you know, Pip's interpretation of the ghost effect, where you stop and you might see like a single frame of your character looking off in a particular direction or something, and it holds for a second, is a reminder that you yourself are leaving traces as you go.
So Chris Donlan came to a similar conclusion.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in his review for Eurogamer.
It's such a strange decision, but I also credit that it's an intentional decision. It's intended to create a particular effect. And I think a lot of the writing feels that way to me as well. Like there's this sense of like,
Well, I had some thoughts about, because, so you said that like you don't really see where this fits with other Inkle games, and I think I do, definitely. So I played last night with my son, and we're really enjoying it. But like, it's not the kind of thing. My son is 13 and it's sort of, he was enjoying it, and like, especially like the language aspects of it. But what I wanted to show him was like sorcery, because like that is like fantasy kind of nuts and bolts kind of, but well done kind of game. Went back to it, and I was really interested in, like, it felt like it answered some of the problems with that I felt, and we've been discussing with Heaven's Fault, where there's a lot more sorcery, which is basically a very much a sort of choose your own adventure in terms of having a certain number of options at any point. And when you choose those options, they're chosen and you can't go back. And I think there's a lot of that with actually Heaven's Vault, but the 3D world disguises that. Like, we're used to being in 3D world. You go over there and you feel that you can always walk back again to someone else. And like, you've got like this agency in a 3D world, which actually Heaven's Vault doesn't give you that and can't give you, because it's sorcery. And for every encounter you have, you've actually got a set of options that you're invisibly choosing by.
Well, it has this nutty back-end system, isn't it? I've actually talked about it in the podcast before, long before I played the game, because John Ingold gave a talk about it. And it is, what it's doing behind the scenes is insane. It is something that like, that many designers toy with and think, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could do a game like this? But of course you never possibly could. And they have made a game using that system. For me, it is breaking in many ways that I will, get
so you're talking
to.
about the sort of narrative proc gen.
It's supposed to be designed so you can do kind of almost anything in almost any order, because it's rather than being like a branching tree, like a traditional, like a Mass Effect type narrative, it's, a million different conditions, that are all kind of independent from each other in theory. And it's just checking for if at any time these 3 conditions are true, this dialogue will pop up. Or if there are 5 other dialogues that are also valid, it'll pick one of those randomly. And
that happens in sorcery as well, but on a far more kind of, I'd say it's probably more, evident in something like, or in something like sorcery, because it's all just text, linear text and with options. But object, with conditional stuff going on is totally how sorcery works as well. And 80 days.
We should talk about the language stuff, because that is, I absolutely love the deciphering the language, and it's, kind of the central thing. It's the thing the game is about. I almost wish it was just that, or because we mentioned before, like, it is a game that wants to do its own version of everything, like every possible aspect of just making a game. They've decided to do it differently to everyone else. Yeah. And that's kind of admirable in a way, but the language thing is where it absolutely works, and everything else I kind of wish was just a traditional point and click, and I just want to focus on the language stuff, because, what's weird about it is I'm engrossed in it as as if it's an academic challenge, like as if I am a real linguist trying to decipher everything, but actually it's making huge, cheats basically, which is like, the main one is you're looking at ancient text, and there's 3, in some cases it will tell you that there are 3 words here. And for this word, here are the 3 possibilities it could be. So right away, it's just saying it's one of these 3 words, we know for sure. And that's just a completely artificial piece of knowledge that just comes from nowhere and is instrumental in you deciphering anything. And then you go through the sentence and you realize, oh, I picked A for the first one, or I picked truth for the first one, and now I realize that doesn't make any sense with either of the other 2 options, so I've got to go back and change that. And then sometimes after you've sort of used the right word in the right place a few times, you just become sure of it.
Yeah.
Your character says, that's right. That sounds right to me.
I feel really confident about this arbitrary thing I chose.
But what's interesting, I mean, you need, they had to do something like that because you need some kind of certainty, because obviously if it was
you're just actually doing that.
If it was the Obra Dinn, or Obra Dinn also has this kind of certainty, but in a different way. But Obra Dinn, I spend a lot of that game where I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure of these 9 things, but I haven't got all of the information to get the game to verify for me. So everything I do based on that is all fruit of the poison tree and could collapse at any time.
Yeah.
So I very much appreciate that they made these concessions. And it's amazing that even though they did that, I still really feel like I'm deeply engrossing in not the fake challenge, but the real challenge of there is a secret meaning to all these things. There is a logic to this language, and I feel like this is a great trick to pull off in a game where I feel like I'm way ahead of what the game will acknowledge I know. Like it'll tell me, know what this word is, but I'm like, oh no, I also know these 5 words that you think I'm not sure of. I'm 100% sure of those. I know for sure that they are right. For reasons that are based on logical leaps I've made. The game is not validated or returned to me in any way, but I just get the logic. Like I can just see it. Oh, this is like, there's a kind of grammar to the individual like strokes in a thing. And I'm a long way from understanding all of it.
So yeah, because you're looking at hieroglyphs. Fundamentally, like little characters, and there are lots of different characters. Some of them are semi-pictorial, and some of them are more abstract.
Well, you assume they are, and that becomes part of your process.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes it's some of them are not, and some of them are just you just have to figure out from placement. But it's so interesting to have this. I think it would all fall apart if it was a simple like letter substitution cipher, or even if it was just like one word to one word. But it's not, they break down words in a different way to how our language does. And grasping that kind of logic is really interesting because there's symbols in that where I can kind of like, over the course of looking at many different phrases that are used, or many different words that they're used in, like I know for sure the meaning of 3 different words that use this symbol inside the word somewhere, but it doesn't play the same role as a letter does. It has some kind of semantic meaning. And there are some where I can like, I do have a sense of the meaning, but I can't tell you what it is. It's something like sort of these 3 different concepts mixed together in some way. And that's really interesting.
It's really lovely. Like it is to like linguistics or archaeology or ancient linguistics or something what like Guitar Hero is to music. You know what I mean? And I mean that in a fun way. Like that is, that is the appeal of it as a game is like it allows you to sort of sample what it feels like to be clever in this way. And it's really, really successful. And like, I think it's really interesting, like, and that's what makes me want to go back and play more. I think actually, like, I am really, really, it's tremendously, like, impressive to create something like that, like, to build a puzzle into language is something that really appeals to me and, like, really love it. And I think there are lots of qualities of its broader framing, or at least intentional decisions that you can discuss. You can have a debate about whether they work for you. But they are distracting, I think. And I wonder if, I wonder what the parallel universe where this is a more straightforward, like,
I want to play
click or something.
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, but with this for every
right.
puzzle.
The comparison I'd use is like, I think the language system and the deciphering stuff is as kind of both sort of elegant, but also as sort of interesting in terms of the possibilities it opens up for storytelling as like, Her Story's search system. Like in terms of like, it's similar in the sense that it's a hugely difficult thing to create, but really easy to get why it's cool and to engage with, right? Like mapping out Her Story's script so it works the way it does is incredibly difficult. Figuring out a language where you can have this kind of semantic puzzle, also really, really complicated and really impressive to pull off. In Her Story's case, obviously that you can go play Minesweeper or whatever it is or Solitaire in the desktop, but like there's no distractions. It's just that mechanic. This does other game things.
Yeah. Well, it wants you to, like, part of its vision is you want to explore worlds. It wants you to discover inscriptions on a well, where you have to actually go to that location.
And that's what gives me pause because, like, I'm not very far in, I'm an hour in, but I already had an instance where I was walking along and I found a thing in the undergrowth and I looked at it and it was another opportunity to do translation, which is what I'm enjoying doing. And and then immediately afterwards, the companion, the little robot said, like, are you ready to leave? And I was like, no, because now as a 3D exploration game, which isn't particularly like fun to run around in or anything like that, that's not its purpose, has made me anxious that I'm missing things.
Yeah.
It's given me there are objects to find fear.
So I think I might have, had less of that fear because I watched this talk by John Ingold about how it works. And his whole thing is like this condition system. The reason they did it is that they didn't want you to be stuck in one place for too long. And if you leave before you found everything, they'll just find a way to give you that stuff later in some other way.
Interestingly, that's when the robot said that to me. I did find that consoling. Like it was a game saying it's okay. Like
for me, it also backfired. That system backfired because, I was on like, a location that was full of stuff. And I just was finding really like, not just kind of, there are sometimes you can tell it's a proc gen item. You found like, oh, there's something here. It's a page from a thing and it has an inscription and you can tell that's just been placed there, to make sure I found something. But there's also in this location specific really stuff that's closely tied to the environment and obviously handcrafted. And I found like 3 of those things. I think even after I found the second one, the robot was like, do you want to leave yet? And I'm like, no, I want to keep looking. And I found the third one. He's like, okay, we found 3 really useful items here. We should go back and report our findings. And I was right next. It was really late at night and I was kind of half tempted by what he said, but just, I haven't explored half this place. And I left it there for the night and I came back today and, I said, no, I'm going to stick around still. And I went the other route. The other route is just like the fucking answer to the whole fucking mystery is right there. Like the whole thing you've been sent to understand. We were standing right next to it, like looking at it. And the robot was like, we should go home. Like he's not even saying, do you want to go home? He's just like, oh, we're done here. It's fine. We have 3 things. There's no further thing. That giant glowing thing, nothing. I don't think there's anything. I think we should leave. And it's like, even when you're looking around, the robot's like, oh my God, this solves everything.
Yeah. I find that kind of like, cause you saying that makes me less nervous about it. Because obviously you can build a system like this to account so that players don't have to worry about this. But if players have played other games like this, they will worry. Yeah. Because, you know, it's not like Mass Effect, but Mass Effect punishes you for not investigating every area and not giving yourself every option to succeed. Like, you know, that is how a lot of narrative games work. And it's, you know, that's the question of like, how do you train players out of behavior they're really used to and expectations they're really, really used to? And you almost need that disclaimer to flash up at the start and say,
it's okay.
Follow the thread. There's no missing out or something like that. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you do that without basically saying, please feel free to stop exploring when you want to stop exploring or, you know, something like that. Like,
I mean, there is definitely handcrafted stuff and it's, that's good stuff. Like in that location, a lot of the things I found just were given their meaning by the context. It was like the fact that this was scrawled by a bed meant something.
Yeah.
And even, like, I knew that before I started translating it. Then when I translated it, I was like, oh, that's even, give it like a sinister edge. And that's my favorite stuff, definitely. There's been some frustrating things, this is less frustrating because I know, that whatever information I missed, I'll get it some other way. But there was a chest and it said, my options were like read the lid or try to open it. And I tried to open it because I was really curious about what was inside, thinking I'll read the lid later. And opened it. There was something major inside, a huge story thing and loads of discussion about that. And then afterwards, you close the lid, but you can't read the lid anymore. There's no usable thing on it. So whatever that inscription was, I'm not allowed to read it anymore.
Again, like I remember Chris Donlan review, he was sort of interpreted the way that the game sort of pushes you forward, like the way that like you'll walk onward without having apparently made a choice, or, you know, that you can't go back and read the lid and things, is sort of another commentary on the flow of time. And, you know,
that's like, generous, I think.
Sometimes I've just walked to Greg's and I don't know how I don't know how I got there. Yeah.
There's no shadow of yourself behind.
What do you think about the sailing bit? Does that get?
I hate
it. It does. That is the bit for me that really is not feeling good.
I just wish it wasn't interactive. I wish it was like, I plot my course on the map. You know where I'm going. Let me just watch a nice thing and listen to the nice music.
There's no fast travel later on then.
I'm not that I've encountered.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It took so long to before.
You know, space travel is a matter of like, you know, essentially like, whitewater space rafting, between,
awkward
nodes,
right.
or awkward rafting. They
got to do everything their own way. They're like, space travel, going from point A to point B. How are we going to do that?
But you're right. It does
twisting
feel
3D
a bit like
rivers.
A sort of PlayStation 2 kind of minigame.
It's got a sort of, like kind of, yeah. I feel like this is the thing. Like the reason I'm hesitant is because I don't want to call it like an outright failure. Because I think obviously aesthetically, but it's a bit of a mess. Like aesthetically, the game's really lovely and the design of the boat is kind of lovely. And the idea of like rivers of space, water linking planetoids is a nice one.
And the navigating to places is a solid one.
But there's a bunch of things that don't quite sit right with me. One is that like, you know, there's a bit very, very early in the game. I think it's the first time you do this, you sort of approach like a farm moon basically. And you're told like, you know, look, you can see there it is, like up ahead, and you can't see it. Like the things you're going to are not actually there.
Yeah.
Which is a weird decision. And again, with something like this, where so many intentional, unusual decisions have been made, I'm really reluctant to go, this is a mistake. I am very willing for someone to explain to me what I am missing, about why it is that way. But it can be strange, like, to have your characters pop up in the speech bubbles and say, you know, look, like a rocky moon, and you can't see one, and then it fades to black, and then you're there. You know, there's a sort of like, so it's very strange. And then I'm playing with a pad, so it's like the triggers to like steer
again,
left
like
and
it's his own thing. Like I keep trying to use the joystick.
Yeah, you don't use the analog stick to steer. You use the two triggers and A to.
And like during the journey, I will forget that again. Like I'll go off course a little bit and I'll try and correct with the left stick while holding the right trigger and stuff.
Yeah, my only thought is that it's for like, you know, like on an iPad or something, like maybe tilting it or something like that.
Yeah. Is it on iOS now?
Oh, please don't be tilting.
It must be, like that would be the reason.
It's not out yet, but
Or just touching either side of the screen or something to kind of bank each way.
Yeah.
But like, it feels like a sort of like, I don't know, like a Diddy Kong Racing ice level. Like it has
Diddy Kong Racing is kind of better.
Diddy Kong Racing is amazing, so I really shouldn't have gone there.
That's a bit rude, actually.
Diddy Kong's Vault.
But like, it's all like the, you know, like the bobsledding bit in a noughties James Bond game.
It's the Cool Runnings game.
Yeah. And like, I think if you take away all of the wonderful music and the sort of evocative writing and the sort of the big sort of creative decisions that have been made in the moment, that's what you got the skeleton of. You know what I mean? Like the white box version of this is that, and that's not great. So I don't know why it is like this.
Before I say this, I'll stress again, I love the language game and I'm very happy. Right. I bought this game and I will continue to play it just for the language game, if nothing else. The story stuff I was into, and then it just fucking broke me with a infuriating case of railroading where I was pushed into, I had to say a thing that I really didn't want to say and that makes no sense. And, so I'll keep this free of spoiler specifics. But reporting to somebody who has been kind to me, that's all I know about them really, is they've been kind to me, to give them the information that they asked for. I had three options to say. One of them was, she says, "Oh, I'm not sure if I want to hear what you have to say." And one of the options is, "Well, I'll tell you." And if you choose that, your only option after that is to lie to her in a way that is extremely hurtful, like pointless, and you're standing right next to somebody who not only can tell them the truth, but has in advance told you, I will tell this person the truth. There is no way you can ever get away with this lie, that you know that, and it's hurtful, and I can't see a reason to do it, and it's just insane. I can't understand why this option is even an option, let alone the only thing you can say if you say, I'm going to tell you what you asked for. It's absolutely baffling. And I was just sitting in this choice. I would like, because there are some conversations that are time limited, I just sat there for 5 minutes waiting to see if this choice would ever fade away. Cause I'm like, I will not say this. And then the next thing I tried was Alt F4, the game, to see if I can lose some of my progress so I can go back and see if there's any other choice I could have made that would get me out of this. Nope. It's auto-saved on that.
Oh shit.
Mono
really?
choice thing. The game has no manual saves, no way to get back to any previous checkpoint. So you're stuck on that forever. So in the end, I have to say it. And then you get caught for lying, and then it has consequences. And I'm just so fucking, like, I was angry enough that I couldn't carry on playing. And I was angry enough that when I stopped playing, I also couldn't go back to work. Like, for half an hour, I was just fuming about this. I was so like, cause I got invested, and then it was just absolutely fucked me on it. It was just, I have to destroy the only relationship I cared about in this for no reason that I can understand. It's bizarre. And it's got to be a consequence of that weird condition system, I'm sure. Well, it might be that, or it might be that before
this, amount of characterization that it's determined to have for your character. Like I've been caught. I know that it's been an issue for you as well, Chris, where my character is saying arsehole things that I really didn't mean to say.
Well, and this was the reason that I had that disconnect between the narration and my character at first, because I was sort of like, oh, I am this person. I guess I'm quite sort of, diplomatic and sort of professional, I guess. And that was,
she's meant to be like this sort of, like a scientist,
right.
Archaeologist,
and you have
serious
you have those choices, but
yeah.
then there are aspects of the character that come out where no, and that's fine because it's interesting to explore the character, but
sure. It
can make you feel like you're not sure whether your job is to role play the character or to, imprint yourself on the character.
Yeah.
And that is the old school Mass Effect, versus Dragon Age 1 kind of dichotomy, but it's not quite clear where you're going with this. And I think having the third layer of having the character voiced in a way you don't control is, I think that is what is, strange about it for me, is that, you choose everything she says within this context, but not in this other context
right.
where she sounds where she is realized in a much more kind of human way.
I think some of it's just like, some of it's like Inkle very spare with, dialogue and, sort of the live dialogue, like that is happening that you're choosing from. And I really admire it. I think that in the grand main of it, it's incredibly elegantly short. It's like, it just reminds me of the amount of kind of text-based fiction games where you're spending ages waiting for people to stop talking. What they're trying to say and what they're trying, like Inkle just like, it's the most perfectly chosen 3 words, which do it.
Yes, right. Yeah.
But then I think when that then is transposed into a slightly more character-driven, less choice-driven section, like the the voiceover bits, like I think maybe there's some division between that, but I totally accept what you're saying about
I think I was maybe playing it initially as like, don't be mean, don't be mean, don't be mean, don't be mean, and like to the robot, and then eventually you get to the point where you can't not really.
I was kind of okay with being nasty to the robot from the start.
The robot's been a dick to me. I've been very nice to him, and he's just literally racist.
Wow.
And then
that's good,
I didn't even,
I haven't even had a shade of that.
He basically said some shit about my race, and then one of my responses was to say, hey, I am that race, actually. And not even actually, just I am that race. And, he said, I'll bear that in mind. And that was it. And then he started chewing me out for being snippy with him, saying, oh, I've detected that actually you're being short with me. Fuck you! Jesus Christ. Robot is an asshole.
Incidentally, it's very early, so it's not a spoiler, but the notion of, robots that people just find in the floor.
Yeah.
Or in the walls, of an old, buried in concrete in an old planet is a wonderful bit of science fiction writing. Like, I really, really like it. And that's the sort of thing that and the translation is what's keeping me going. And actually that stuff, the incidental stuff, the little details is what is making the exploration stuff kind of work, I think. Because the question I was going to have is like, because there's a way in which it feels like a bunch of like slightly not fully realized, environments and mini games even with the travel, attached to a fundamentally really good and really elegant system, right? It's a very different story to Her Story, but that's what, to go back to that comparison, Her Story is notable for not distracting you in that way or not requiring you to do some other task to get back to the thing you want to be doing. And I'm still not sure that this wouldn't be better if it didn't get you back to either the talking to people or the, deciphering as fast as it can every time. But yeah, so that sentence is just sort of like, ended in a question mark.
It's amazing. Cause I feel like adventure games, always had so much going for them in terms of story and art and all the surrounding stuff. And then the puzzles were the thing that kind of, for a certain audience, they were absolutely fine and they loved them. But, for everyone else, they were incredibly frustrating and obtuse and made no sense. And this game potentially solves that problem in that, like, they found a mechanic, as Her Story did and as Obra Dinn did, where, this mechanic will sustain a whole game. You can just, they can keep reusing it and it will never get old and it will always be interesting and always be developing and progressing. And that's amazing. I think this one in particular works, or at least it can better serve as the backbone for an adventure game than Her Story or Obra Dinn, which are both, Her Story is just the mechanic and nothing else. It's just you search for the thing and you watch some videos and that's it. Which is, it's its own kind of game. It is not like Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. And Obra Dinn is more of an adventure game, but it's, again, it's all the mechanic and nothing else. It wouldn't make sense if you were walking around talking to people and having dialogue trees and hopping around the globe and all this stuff. It has to be just about that. Whereas this feels like it can fit within the rest of the stuff that an adventure game has. And so it's a bit of a shame that I feel like they wanted to change everything else about the adventure game as well. And most of the other things they changed, I don't like as much as just the standard way of doing it.
Yeah, right. You probably don't need to go tobogganing.
Yeah.
I think that goes for everything, life.
There you go. That's the lesson. That's the translation of this text. What else have you been playing, Tom?
I dipped into Risk of Rain 2 a bit. Man, that game has done well. I saw their blog post when, like, a little while after launch where they said, like, the start of the blog was just holy moly. And like, they were obviously saying it had done well. And a little while later I saw it sold 500,000 copies. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Crazy.
That's in early access in like 2 weeks or something. And it has something like 10,000 user reviews on Steam. Sekiro has 16,000. So
Dang,
it's going to overtake Sekiro
copies, right?
before launch, certainly. So that I didn't have a sense that Risk of Rain 1 was this big, but maybe it was.
It was quietly quite big, and yeah.
But so Risk of Rain 2 is the 3D one. It's first person, and I didn't like it at first because I don't know if this is more so than the original or if it just shows more in first person, but it was just constant shooting. It was just like, there was no reason to ever take your finger off the trigger. You'll always need to be shooting everything all the time. Not most, but like a big chunk of the enemies are flying. And so I was playing on gamepad as well, which is not the ideal way to do it. I wanted, like, Risk of Rain to me was not too stressful an experience, even though it does like mount up over time and get chaotic. It was kind of an easy game to play on gamepad and sit back and kind of chill with. And in first person, it was not feeling like that. It was feeling like, oh my God, I just have to be 100% of the time doing precise aiming against aerial enemies with no break. And I would find like shrines and shops and stuff that had stuff. Even with all my Risk of Rain 1 experience, I still didn't know what they did, and like I'd forgotten most of the rules, and finding that out while people are shooting at you was no fun at all.
Yeah.
And then I came back to it more recently, and I think just got over that hump a bit. I just got way better at shooting things with the gamepad, and it just started to find it way easier, and had a run where there's like the reason I went back to it was because I don't really like the starting character, and Risk of Rain is all about unlocking characters. There's something like 12 of them, like a huge number in total. But I didn't know how you even go about them. It'd been long enough that I played the first one that I didn't remember how it worked in that game. So I think I just looked up a guide. Like at the time I first played, there weren't any guides, and now there are. And there's one that's just like complete the first stage 5 times and then you'll get the next character. And I thought, okay, I can do that. But then it also mentioned the Huntress, which is like one of the best characters. That's a little bit trickier to unlock. You have to complete like 5 stages in a row or 6 stages in a row. And then when I played with the mercenary, it was just, the commando. It was just like his ability to just like shoot twice, shoot but through things, shoot a lot in a short space of time, or do a forward roll. Those are his 4 abilities. That's the class concept.
Which is pretty much the same as it was in Risk of Rain 1,
and I didn't actually like him in Risk of Rain 1 either. And I don't know why. Maybe I just unlocked the characters faster in Risk of Rain 1 or whatever. But anyway, I played as him again and on easy mode. And I think I just got the right relics early enough. I got like a relic that just made all my shots explode. Just every attack I do explodes. And suddenly, as soon as there's splash damage, like that's what Risk of Rain is all about. Is just about like, how do I get this horrible horde of enemies chasing me all into one place so that my one attack hits them all at once, and then it becomes super efficient and I can farm them in this really gratifying way. And just getting that relic early enough just meant that was the case all the time. I could always find really neat ways to efficiently take out groups of enemies. And then the relics are insane. I hadn't unlocked many, so I was just finding the same ones over and over again. But now they're all like on your 3D character. So like,
yeah, I didn't realize that.
You find the soldier syringe that increases your attack speed. He just sticks like 5 syringes in his thigh, and they're just sticking out of your thigh for the rest of the game.
You wear glasses. You wear glasses.
Yeah, you have like a necklace and a banjo on your back. The banjo gives you chain lightning for some reason. I'm not totally sure what the logic is there.
Yeah, okay.
And I've got like 3 drones. 2 of them heal me. The other one shoots things.
My brain just went to banjo on chain lightning.
Oh, sorry. It's, that's very good. But I fucked it up because it's actually a ukulele. And when you find it, it just says, and his music was electric. I don't know if that's a reference to something that I don't get. But anyway, I think it's when you shoot an enemy, like a lightning thing goes to the next enemy. And yeah, I had a really good run. It was a good enough run that when 6 missions in, I could not find the teleporter that you need to exit the level. It's got this thing where like when you find the teleporter, you don't necessarily want to leave right away. The difficulty is escalating over time. So it's not about, getting to the exit as quickly as possible. It's more about like, have you found all the good stuff in this level? You know, have you got the items and gone to the shops and that kind of stuff? But this level, I'd been playing it a while. I hadn't found it. And then I still couldn't find it. And then after like 10 minutes of looking, I still couldn't find it. And then after 20 minutes of looking, I still couldn't find it. And I'm just going around in a circle. And the game was, I'd found good enough relics and I was playing on easy mode that there was basically no challenge to it. And the difficulty's escalating over time. Like I say, it's not by level. And it got up to the difficulty of ha 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 ha. I think that's the last difficulty because it's just ha ha ha's as far as the eye can see. Like this,
Which
on
is
the
scrolling,
bar.
isn't it? The ha-ha is scrolling. Yeah.
It just goes on forever. But it still wasn't too much of a problem. I just couldn't find the fucking teleporter for literally 30 minutes. I was looking for this teleporter for 30 fucking minutes. When I finally found it, it was just, it's this dark circle on the ground. People tell me there's fireflies above it, but I've never spotted it by that method. And I've looked for the fireflies and it's never been useful.
Because there is
it was a dark patch on the ground. It was clipping through some of the scenery because it's randomly placed. And then there was like a dark fence in front of it. So from 160 degrees, you wouldn't see the teleporter because there's this fence in front of it, which is dark itself. And so that would explain the dark thing you're seeing. And then from the other 60 degrees, you can just about see it, I guess. Wait, I don't think his numbers added up, or whatever.
There is an item that gives you kind of awareness of it, or the.
I think I must have not unlocked that because I was finding so many relics that I had 5 copies of everything I owned.
But the game can't be based on you having found one of the relics. It's just.
Well, I wouldn't mind if it was one of the starting relics, like one of the ones that you can get without having to unlock it, because there's a standard set, and I just.
But it is the problem.
But
it seems that relic is designed to solve the big problem with 3D worlds, where things are fucking hard to find.
Like it was sometimes a challenge in Risk of Rain 1 to find where the teleporter was. I remember having some cases where I'm like, oh, I don't know where it is, and I would like to go there now, but maybe 5 minutes to look for it, not 30. So I actually have an update on my Heaven's Vault problem because I bitched about it on Twitter, which is my solution to all problems. And John Ingold from Inkle replied to say that he says, Tom's thing looks like a bug to me. There are about 300,000 lines, so there will be some.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
So to clarify, we're recording this having taken a little break where Thomas had time to check his phone to find out that his Aya, which was only minutes ago for you, was not misplaced, but possibly not intentional.
Completely valid I would say.
Sorry.
With a different cause.
Perhaps. No, yes, you know what I mean. Like the cause of it was not intentional.
Yeah, it's weird because dialogue choices, they're so authored by definition, and it doesn't feel like I even knowing all this back-end stuff that I do know about how Heaven's Vault works, still felt like a railroading. It still felt like, I made this choice one step ago and therefore I'm locked into this other choice that makes no sense to me.
But nonetheless, we can done our diligence.
Yep. We move on with our lives. To questions? From questions?
Yes. No one's ever asked me.
This has made your week.
Oh, it's a wonderful feeling. Yes, I can do questions, Tom. Thank you for asking.
Excellent.
I do need a sip of whiskey because my voice is going at a really opportune moment. Our first question, and I appreciate because we missed a week of podcasts, we're obviously, catching up, so we don't have time to read everything. But we did have 2 that I definitely wanted to read, because they helped me solve a problem with my life. First one comes from Jacob, and he writes, if you wanted a Sonk Hedge, knuckle tattoo.
And we do.
That maps perfectly to your hand hinges. You could get and, as in sign, and knu culls.
Sounds good.
Across both of your hands. Hashtag gamers would get the reference, while everyone else would probably think it was some kind of self-aware hipster pseudo-commentary thing, as if I would be capable of that. Either way, they'd probably think you were a prick, and they'd probably be right. Thanks, Jacob. I deserve every bit
now
of it.
I want, hand on one hand and hinge on the other.
Hand hinge.
Yeah. It could be a J.
Yeah. That is my favourite Scandi electronic band. To add in a question, which PC games character would you like to see in or added or condemned to a live action or animated family movie? Robots like Atlas and Peabody from Portal 2 are cheating, as they're too easy to make not horrifying. My own pitch is that after spelling out Baba is real, The little sheep thing appears in LA, New York, or small-town America and causes hijinks with its ability to alter the laws of reality. Some corporation or shady government probably wants to capture Baba to take advantage of this power. And you know how these kinds of films go. Make sure to send me a cut when Hollywood inevitably options your answers. Jacob. I would actually genuinely watch the Baba is Real movie.
Good title too.
Yeah.
It writes itself.
I think it would be a film with Kano from Mortal Kombat as he settles down. He wins the prize. Decides Kano's the one with the kind of mostly robot face. He's like a punchy man with he has glowing red eye.
Yeah.
He's drawn as a bit of a, not a hero in the game. But what if he won that competition, the Mortal Kombat competition?
I know which
He won that big competition with Tekken.
Not the badminton competition.
Decides to invest his prize money in settling down in, let's say, Midwest America, because that's where they're all set. And has to bring up a family. He finds it rather more difficult than even the fighting what you done
punching
before.
everybody. Could you remind me? The question is video game characters in what kind of?
I need to scroll up. Thanks.
Family
Is it
friendly,
animated or live
action or animated family movie. Did I say kids movie, family movie?
I'm thinking mine would be live action. Like Kano film.
I feel like because he also says like the robots are cheating because they wouldn't be horrific.
Yeah,
that makes me think live action. I was thinking like Plants vs. Zombies. Most of the plants would be fucking horrific if they were real. Yeah. Like even just the walnut.
Zombies would probably be fairly horrific as well.
Yeah, I mean zombies, but we're used to that. Whereas a walnut, like if you try to do like a realistic fleshy walnut that cries as it gets damaged, that would be fucking terrifying.
I think go on.
I wonder about Rayman.
We all been wondering about Rayman.
Often in the quiet moments in life, I wonder about Rayman.
In the movie,
how his hands are attached to his body.
Everybody hates Rayman.
There it is.
I'm trying to...
Rayman.
I'm just thinking about a family movie where, I don't know, like the helicopter pilot from Deus Ex or someone you only think about every now and then. Is it Jock?
Yeah.
Yeah. He just has to go home to his family in like Minneapolis or something and like explain half the things that have happened to him and that they don't believe him. But in doing so, he kind of discovers something about himself, which is that the real stories are made with your kids, not in a helicopter.
His apartment is in Hong Kong. Sorry for Deus Ex.
This is 279 episodes and Tom just corrected me on a law thing.
Look, if it's Deus Ex, it's my turf.
I don't know.
Well, there's any number of kind of, soldiers from in games with very high body counts that do survive your onslaught and go home, and they're not given up here as well. Nobody knows what they did.
Yeah, right. Maybe like just a procedurally generated, sort of Frankish lord from Crusader Kings gets a new job as an ad executive. What happens there? I don't know.
It's up to Hollywood to fix.
But option it and then we'll talk.
Oh God, Spelunky guy would be horrific in real life. Because of his nose.
Do you mean Indiana Jones?
Because of his nose.
He has a giant red nose. Have you not noticed this?
Yeah. Alcoholic Indiana Jones.
That's like clown shit.
Good. So the next question, also helps me answer a very important question. Dan writes, Dear Hedge and Sonk Bar, doubling up on each finger/knuckle would allow you to perfectly fit the following tattoo across both hands. Sonne Kuthe Hedg Ahjog.
The Swedish counterpart does look like Hedgehog.
My other favourite Scandia electronica album. What's the goal on Patreon for Chris to make this reality?
I'm about to raise a number and I thought, oh dear.
And back us for 20 knuckles.
Yeah, exactly.
Or hand hinges.
Enough for Tom to buy the Sonic the Hedgehog license and then have to make that game. Actual question. Sekiro goes to great lengths through dialogue, item, and skill descriptions to explain how unpleasant the healing gourd juice tastes. What are the tastiest health pickups out there, and what are the worst? Arguably, you don't eat them, but the fairies in Zelda have a real strawberry Nesquik look to them. Thanks, Dan.
Do you know what? In Diablo 1, and maybe subsequent Diablos, there's health potions, there's mana potions. I'm sure health potions are pretty good tasting.
Yeah.
But there was, in particular, a potion of rejuvenation, which restored both mana and health. And it was bright yellow, like it was really glowing yellow. I always imagined that tastes delicious.
I always imagined that the health charges or the shield charges, no, the shield charges in the suit charges in Half-Life were just full of iron brew.
What was the noise? Because there's two different noises. There's one for the medicine one and one for the power one,
I
right?
think the medicine one is the sort of
and the other one's more like
Yeah.
a sort of like an
Wow.
electronic note. Yeah,
And the-
Yeah.
electric note. Well,
Do the power one again?
the power one. I think is sort of like it's got like a kind of sort of. Can you imagine if you were at like Nando's or something and the automatic, the infinite refill machine made that sound? That'd be very good.
There's something I like the way that the sounds make it taste in like BioShock and things when you eat
Yeah.
like the stuff out of bins and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like it
Like
feels
good bin food.
it feels good. It sounds good that you're eating this stuff, but it's not good.
It's not good, no. It's
not good.
Eating an apple is always good in those games because it's a pretty good noise.
Yeah, like the green health orbs in Devil May Cry 5 have got a real like apple Fanta kind of vibe to them. They're tangy. I don't know why they're tangy. Tangy. I like a lot of health pickups would taste tangy. I don't know why I think that.
And then there's the Doom health pickups, which are basically massive boxes.
Yeah.
Grey boxes, and obviously
Yeah,
they're
they-
meant to
they-
have
they smell like
medical
Savlon.
equipment in them. Yeah, very Savlon.
Wintergreen.
And kind of, like you just, you have too many of them.
It wouldn't be tasty. I don't think you eat them, do you?
No.
I'm assuming with the whole medical symbol
I don't know,
that
you
you
absorb them into your body, don't
apply
you?
them. It's quick, I gotta say. Wolfenstein 3D, of course, was chicken dinners,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which you ate whole. The plate was gone as well. And just,
There is the dog food as well.
oh yeah. Did that restore less health?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It's a little,
Does it?
Look, if you're shot, you're not eating dog food for it. Like, that's why doctors don't prescribe dog food. For
They don't
bullet
prescribe a
wounds.
full chicken.
I don't know. That's the right
know.
doctor. In private healthcare, often they do.
Yeah. No, that you need to give them the tangy juice. That's what fixes it.
Here is a potion of rejuvenation from Diablo 1. It's 2D, but still quite refreshing.
Ilya writes, Dear Crabs and Croissants, Chris has previously mentioned on the podcast that the moment in which a game or film presents him with multiple spaceships exiting warp is a moment so delicious that it will make the rest of the film/game worth it. Similarly, when I watched the Han Solo film, I knew my £14 was well spent when a sleek black spaceship hovered near a rugged, deserty coastline. What specific types of moments in games, visual spectacle or otherwise, have made the rest of the game worth it and make you think, tasty. Keep the flutes tootin'. Ilya.
I do love a good zoom out for a map. Like you hit the map button, or maybe it's in a cutscene or something, but
Yeah.
it just pans out from like your current position to see the whole world, but in a seamless way that makes you feel like, okay, this really is all here.
Yeah, it's very big. Do you get that from the timeline in Heaven's Vault?
No, I find it fiddly because it hides things that are sort of obviously, there's a million different things happening in one node at a certain view. And so I just don't really know where things are. Like I'll be scrolling through and there's nothing there, but actually if I zoom in, there is secretly something there. And so I don't feel like I have that overview. Like it doesn't really tell me where everything is.
Yeah.
is the lens flare effect, or the kind of, and also the launching effect from space stations in No Man's Sky, which I always rather liked.
Actually, now that you mention
Thing
it,
to it.
I don't know what it is exactly, but Mass Effect has something that just like, I could see just one scene from that game and be like, oh yeah, I definitely want to play this. Like,
Is it because every surface, every spaceship has the J.J. Abrams kind of...
The lights, the horizontal
there's the lens
light
flare and
flare.
then the music as well. I don't know if the audio stuff can count for this, but
I think it can, yeah.
yeah, that bridge music in Mass Effect.
It's not a spaceship exiting warp without a thump,
No.
you know?
Yeah, in movies, I love city flyovers, like particularly cities at night. It's like a flyover shot of a city at night. I'm just like, I don't care what the fuck happens in the next office that we see. Like, I'm there for it now.
Oh god! So we've got an Apple TV, and it's got a screensaver, and it sort of quietly downloads these new screensavers all the time, and they are these very slow flyovers of cities.
Oh, wow.
So they we did a lot of Dubai, a lot of New York, a lot of London.
Oh, that sounds great.
Really, like at night, Hong Kong. Oh my god! I've just probably watched more of them than we have actual
television.
content. Yeah.
My whole taste of movies is like, not so much about the artistic intent and more about like, is there a city on screen? And is there some forest on screen? And then, is there a nice looking office?
Have you ever watched Koyaanisqatsi, Katsi, Tom?
I don't think I have actually.
No,
I know how to spell it though.
You should have seen it performed live with an orchestra. I was on the cinema screen behind the orchestra, and it was fucking great.
I mean, I've seen like, clips of it.
Yeah.
I know what it is.
You kind of need the whole sort of...
How long is it?
I can't remember. I went outside of time for a while.
You were kind of...
Yeah, I took a friend.
enhanced.
It was at the Edinburgh Arts Festival like years and years ago. I took a friend. It was really
I
good.
can imagine in a sort of live scenario, like losing track of time. I'm bad when sitting at home looking at a screen.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at losing track of time.
It's like,
I'm
it's like a
really
lean-
conscious of
it's a
it. Has it
lean
been
back
5 minutes?
chair, big screen sort
Yeah.
of thing. It's a show, you know. But yeah, I took a friend. I had no idea what we were going to, and that was a really good experience. Like this is what is it? It's just sort of time and music and honking.
The 3 elements of life.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this has been answered for me. Spaceships going thump. Also, shout out to Heroic Last Stands. Just get me every time, basically. And also getting the band back together. And so anything that combines those 3 things, like we're getting the band back together for a Heroic Last Stand in Space, also known as the Mass Effect trilogy. Does very well with Team Chris.
I really love, in Return of the Jedi, they go down to a planet, possibly Endor, to take out a shield generator.
Yeah, that's Endor.
In the forest.
It's Forest Moon of Endor, technically.
And,
It's in my territory now, Tom.
okay, where Jock lives. This is Endor. Is Endor the planet and the moons
It's
are...
the moon. No, Endor's the planet. Technically, it's the Sanctuary Moon, but that seems to get remixed all
What
the
do you mean
time.
it's a sanctuary moon?
That's what they refer to it as in the movie.
What is a sanctuary moon?
I don't. It's a Star Wars thing. I don't know.
Well, we go hide on the moon.
It's,
No, I mean it's like
it's
like,
protected. You can't kill the Ewoks there.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like a
It's a national
nature
park.
reserve.
Yeah, exactly.
There was just something about them taking out that building that, like, that was what ignited my Star Wars, like, the magic of Star Wars, I think, is not so much what's happening on screen. It's like what you imagine could happen elsewhere in this universe and what you could do in this universe and like,
Is it because
who would
someone
you
sets
be and all
like
this stuff.
timed charges?
Yeah, just
a
like
thing?
dropping down to a planet and taking out a shield generator is in a forest. That's my fantasy.
It's it's a combination of outpost mission
Yeah.
and space thing.
Yep.
Yep. Oh boy, certain things experienced aged 8 basically determine entire lives. And it's mostly Star Wars. Kane writes, "Hello. People who don't understand anything are playing the early access release of Satisfactory, a new game in the life-ruining time sync genre made popular by life-ruining time syncs like Factorio. And they're offering their advice to the developers across every available communication medium. Advice in the form, I found a bug in Satisfactory. It doesn't do this thing that Factorio does. Or, bug report. Mechanic works slightly differently than it does in Factorio. Or, you should remove this thing from Satisfactory because Factorio doesn't have it, so it's clearly not necessary. In all cases, the poster provides their impressive and infinitely relevant credentials. I've played 1,000 hours of Factorio. Clearly then, they have much to teach Satisfactory's designers. How can we stop people from playing one game in a genre and then deciding that every future game that looks even remotely similar to it has to be made identical to it? Follow-up question. How can we stop people from making time-ruining time sinks like Satisfactory and Factorio? They're like productivity methadone, giving you the narcotic feeling of doing work without you actually achieving anything of value. As a programmer with ADHD and a compulsive personality, it feels like a direct and personal attack. Regards, Kane, who also includes a picture of his very good belt.
A satisfactory belt.
Very satisfactory belt array.
More than satisfactory.
Well, like there's one very, very simple solution to this. Only one Factorio should ever be made. Factorio, and then the shutters are put down on the genre, and it can never be.
Move along, nothing to see here.
But is that not what these fans are attempting to achieve?
Yes. And let them stay on the little island.
Oh, wow.
And stuck there.
See, I was wondering if we were perhaps a little bit guilty of this earlier when we were saying that, because Heaven's Vault has so many of its own ideas that you feel a bit at sea and, you want the familiarity of the thing I don't think that's the same as this, because I think what we said was entirely reasonable criticism.
Whereas what these people are saying is wrong, for all I know.
I can imagine that this kind of feedback is actually sort of useful to developers, because it probably highlights... Tom's on a face, so I'm going to stop talking.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Tom,
be
can you do the face
interrupting.
again? I wasn't watching. Oh, that one. Shit.
It was bit one of my teeth.
It was sort of, imagine Popeye but without a pipe.
I was just thinking, I want to see this feedback. I want to see exactly what they said and why, because I want to know, because I have seen, a thing I experienced with Heat Signature was, not when it came out, but before it came out, was a lot of people projecting ideas onto it from other space games. Can I lead my own fleet of ships? Can I build my own ships? Can I mine asteroids and all this stuff? And I was like, what? No, what the hell are you talking about? Why would you think that? Everything we've said is about you being an agent infiltrating an enemy spaceship. The whole concept is literally you're a guy infiltrating a spaceship, and that is it. And anything else outside of that, I was baffled that anyone expected that. And it was because other space games do that. I know there are so many space games that try to do everything. So that felt like, no one criticized my game for not doing that, as far as I know. But, it was this weird kind of pressure of should I be doing that? I don't think I should be doing that. So that kind of stuff feels not valid to me. I'm, projecting expectations from another game. But with Heaven's Vault, my complaints are things like, there's this other game that solves this problem and it works fine for me. Here I'm struggling because of the method you've chosen, and it's totally different. I don't know why it's different. I don't know what you're getting from doing it differently. So that kind of stuff I'm less sympathetic to.
Yeah. I suppose what I meant was that, in some ways, this is a way to benefit from things other developers had to learn by making a game people didn't like and then changing it to match their expectations and things. So if someone says, I like the way Factorio handled this particular similar mechanic, then you don't have to do it the same way, but you can probably glean something from the way people feel about it, or the way the reason why the original method is popular, or makes the thing work for people. You don't fix what isn't broken, as they say, unless you do, and then you make loads of money.
Is that there are echoes of this? The wish to make everything Factorio. Even if it's a sort of a different game. In what we were talking about at the start about City of Heroes, about this kind of nostalgic view of when the game was perfect. It doesn't matter what's been done since to it. It doesn't matter about the objective qualities that have kind of arisen it since. It's the nostalgia of what it was that you always want to keep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like that goes on across genres like this.
Yeah. Kane.
I think stopping people from playing games and stopping people from making games would address both of Kane's.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's something there. Kane also had a question, which I think was from last week, which we didn't get to because we missed a week, which, would provide a good reason to not stop making games. Which is, hello, which video game would be most improved by replacing its protagonist with an inflatable arm-waving tube man? I think there are lots of good answers to this. I think when we were thinking about this earlier, there's the issue that everything is quite funny.
Yeah.
And that's true. I think Wolfenstein would benefit. I would.
Do you see it from first person?
Yeah. No, it's mostly cutscenes. I just like.
I guess the whole Uncharted side.
No, it's also the health meter, like the face.
Oh yeah, of course.
How they're waving, and it just droops as you don't eat enough chicken. It gets all saggy. I think a sort of, it would take the edge off something, like Dear Esther. Or, just that sort of, but that would need to be a third person, become a third person game in order for you to fully enjoy it.
Would your character come with would your character come with the like the air blower, the very loud air blower that's going on?
Yeah.
Like, has to that powers it, gives it life, breathes literal life into it. Would
feel
it
like,
therefore, in extremely dramatic, sensitive and quiet moments, you'd be permanently accompanied by this?
I think I would fully support the addition of a wavy arm tube man to Overwatch. I feel like it would.
You wouldn't know what to shoot because what is its substance?
I can see it working in the Mass Effect saga, and especially in the romance scenes. People sort of lie on you, and you just kind of deflate.
or a key scene where it's like, Shepard, in order to save my people, you must switch off my fan. I won't do it. Parra can interrupt. Like, no, I can find a bigger fan. They become massive. Do you know what would be good with this? Max Payne. Imagine diving sideways as an inflatable tube man. Could they dive sideways? Probably not.
But it would sort of flap sideways like in a wind or...
Yeah, like the bullet time is just sort of like getting caught in a stiff breeze and just sort of
Or they turn down the fan. Just fan.
Yeah, one of the issues with this is a podcast question, which is not shade on Kane, it's on our ability as podcasters, is that it's quite visible, quite visual, what the miming you want to do in order to illustrate.
Chris, throughout this, has been miming this man.
I have. I need to scroll down, Alex. I need you to keep talking while I scroll down to the next question.
If only an inflatable
I'm
arm
not
could
bad
scroll this
about-
down for us.
Matthew writes, as a long-time listener of the pod back in the OG PC Gamer podcast days, I always struggle with something fun or interesting worth messaging in about. But your discussion on gaming the Boots lunchtime meal deal reminded me of one of my own exploits. And I don't want to set this up too much, but like, holy shit. It's very rare that someone just wins a question. But fucking hell. Back in 2015 and 16, the mobile carrier O2 had a £1 Monday lunch deal at selected retailers, Upper Crust, WH Smith, and Boots. You were only supposed to select one, but as we worked near Charing Cross at the time, you could easily sweep up all three within 5 minutes. 3 meal deals for £3. The crowning jewel was always the Boots meal deal. It seemed like anything goes with their selection of items, which is just Partridgean enough to make it very good. Very good. Anything goes as long as it's grapes and crisps.
And a main.
And a little bag of apple. And a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, chicken stuffing sandwich is the
And
best.
a Diet Coke. Or maybe an Orangina if you're in a fancy place.
No, man. Innocent smoothie.
Oh,
What are you on about?
You bougie.
With a little knitted woolen hat. Is that what you like?
A feel-good message just to reinforce the late
Don't you
capitalist
like
thick
reading?
juice.
Do you not like reading? Reading its
Juice of
words?
the working class.
No, it's a prawn cocktail crisps all day. Anyway, here's where it gets interesting, Matthew writes. The deal had a 1-minute timer once you clicked through to the coupon code. As Charing Cross Station has not one but 2 Boots outlets, you could press the button, pay for your goods at store 1, run to store 2, stock up and check out using the same coupon, bagging you 4 lunches in one fell swoop. Those were the days, Matthew.
Were they all getting 4 lunches each, and then were they eating all of the 4 lunches, or was it like one person went and got all 4 lunches and then split it between 4
That
people?
wouldn't make any sense economically. I mean, then you're paying £4 for lunch. I mean, it's good value, but no, it's
a lot of lunch. It's a lot of lunch.
It's a lot of lunch. Well, presumably if this is Monday, this is lunch for a couple of days.
Yeah, perhaps.
you
Although
can't
how
have-
fresh would it be?
Yeah.
Well, less over time.
Your
That's
innocent
good,
smoothie, not so innocent on day 4.
That's
Fallen
good, though.
Sullied smoothie.
Its little bobble hat,
Tainted smoothie.
damp, and
Another great 80s jams.
that was, that's good min-maxing though. That's really good min-maxing.
This is the only thing I will accept under the term life hack. I think it's been often overused.
Getting good meal deals.
Like that life hack the other day, which was just using the handle on your chopping board as a bin chute.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Ridiculous. It's a handle, you maniacs.
As a bin shoot?
It's hard to explain without showing you a picture.
Yeah.
This is an audio format.
Yeah. It'll change your life for the moment that you watch it, and then you'll forget
Never
it,
do it.
and that'll be that.
Yeah. Anyway, John writes, hello. Where do I find the Pip and Chris Star Wars magic moments where she remembers thing and entertains? Chris's YouTube is all gone. And I don't know if they were there before or where I can magically watch them again. I would very much like to watch, or mostly listen to them again. Thank you so much. Loved the pod and its contents. Sincerely, John, who also provided a very good picture of his good dog, Hondo, which I think is a Star Wars reference.
Very good dog.
So I had a bit of a purge of my YouTube channel. A complete purge of my YouTube channel. So, it wasn't used for much. It was just my personal clips of games and things. They're all gone. But I realized when we got this question, so thank you for sending it, that this also meant that the, Star Wars, Pip remembering Star Wars, videos are gone. So I have been meaning to re-upload them to the Crate and Crowbar YouTube channel. And this will be the prompt I need to do that. So if you haven't listened to these before, it's me and Pip talking through all 3 movies of the original Star Wars trilogy from memory in Pip's case. Which, is funny because Pip. So yeah, thank you for reminding me about that basically. I'll put them up probably in time for when this episode goes up, but maybe just after. Our final, he said, not sure, question comes from Rick, who writes, Dear Chocks and Rebirth, it's Easter soon, and that got me thinking. When I was a kid, I always wanted the big After 8 egg, with the whole box of mint chocolate deliciousness in it. To this day, even with my own income, I've never had one. Are there any eggs you covet but have never had? Keep podding the good pod, Rick.
It's a good question. I remember the Bendix Bittermint egg being my.
What?
Anyone familiar with Bendix Bittermints?
Bendix.
Bendix is a manufacturer of mints, I guess. It's my mum's favorite thing.
Sounds very medical.
Yeah. It's very minty and very dark chocolate. So not overly sweet and not milky or anything. Just very kind of bitter and minty, which is what my mum likes, I guess. And so Bendix Bittermints was her favorite thing, and that she would get that egg for Easter, and I would get, normal eggs, I guess.
Just regular chicken
less standard hen eggs. I have to like them, damn it. No, I would get milk chocolate things. But I was always curious about that one. I don't think I ever had it myself. I'm also curious about the void egg, which I believe is, I think it might be Starbound that it's in, or Stardew Valley. Don't know. Has anyone played Stardew Valley enough to know whether it has fantastical elements in it?
I don't think it's Stardew Valley. It sounds like Starbound to me.
Yeah, it sounds more likely. I think a void chicken hatches from a void egg, but that only raises further questions, really. And in some cases, the original question.
Alex?
There was a certain, I don't know whether it's still true. I should do, because I've got kids and we should probably spoil them with eggs, because that's what happens at Easter. But I don't think today's Easter eggs are quite as kind of there was a period when I was growing up when Easter eggs boxes were huge, and they'd have all these sort of sections, and kind of they would take up shitloads of space. Lots of kind of cardboard.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you'd get 2 Whispers and the egg, and there was and a
it was
mug.
a chocolate event. It was a localized chocolate event.
Yeah, and there were kind of other things in them. And I wanted the most biggest kind of Cadbury's ones.
Am I imagining, or did they move away from having stuff inside the egg? I remember a lot of stuff inside.
Yeah,
you break the egg open.
You'd always have
the payload would be within the egg shell. And now these days it seems like there's just an empty egg and then some stuff alongside it.
It's usually just the normal product, or a small version of the normal product.
Is that because someone would eat the whole egg, or someone with a really a big mouth?
Giant mouth and a giant throat.
They'd eat the entire egg
and then choke on
the choking risk seems small to me.
Yeah, I know, but what if the Anaconda Man is celebrating?
Let me ask you this. When you do have an entire egg of that size, how do you go about tackling it? Do you smash it with your fist? Do you ram your face into it? Do you divide it carefully with a knife?
I always feel like if you allow it to break in half along its seam, so you end up with 2 egg halves.
Green and black ones.
That is
the
too
seam
easy.
is incredibly strong.
Is it? Yeah, this is true.
Gotta work at it.
I like to just try and just sort of nibble at it until it gives way.
Yeah.
I'm a puncher myself. Full on fist. You got to smash the fuck out of that thing. Got shrapnel out.
I will maybe tap it on a table if I need some. Like, I think I eat an Easter egg like a crow would eat an Easter egg. Like, there's some pecking and then maybe some bashing, but like not, you know, there's no violence really beyond that.
As I kind of,
I thought I was being restrained not using my entire face, but I guess I'm being barbaric for using my fist in the first place.
Yeah. It just seems very violent.
Yeah, well, that's the joy
Like,
of it.
springs here, motherfuckers.
It's a fragile
Smash.
thing you're allowed to break.
Right. Okay. I see that, but I want to break it because I want to eat the chocolate, and therefore I kind of, I don't know, I worry that if you break the
That's
egg,
easier when it's in
it
a
just
million
becomes-
pieces.
It becomes, when it just becomes a pile of chocolate at that point, which,
That's great.
but it is great, but it's,
That's what I want.
there's a sort of ovoid excuse. It's what the egg is.
To what? What's
Wow.
an open
chocolate.
excuse for it?
It allows you to eat the chocolate because you're like, well, this is a celebration of some kind.
Oh, like the whole thing?
Yeah, and as long as it retains its sort of egg shape, the symbolism of the event is maintained.
Therefore I can eat all of this.
There's-
and
allowing
then,
you-
then it becomes just simple
Yeah,
base
right.
chocolate.
Like if it breaks in half along the seam and I just like munch on both of those halves, then all you've done is really eaten 2 egg like shoes.
In a very real sense. Haven't you eaten 2
But what
egg
are you
shoes?
being, when
Chocolate
it's in
shoes.
egg form, like,
Yeah.
what are you thinking about? Like, are you thinking about the miracle of
England.
spring throughout?
No, I'm just.
What do you think? Like,
I'm in
I'm
the spirit.
celebrating the return of life to the ground.
I mean, you know, I'm just
Oh, everything is fecund.
the passion, you know, like I mean, you know, I like, I mean, you take a lot of sin into yourself on a day like that.
So what kind of sin is your choice?
Like, I mean, you know, I like to feel like I'm breaking into the egg from above with my face.
Christ alive, both of you. Like, there's
What do you do,
Tom.
Alex?
There's Tom. Like, I just have guilt because, like, as I get
egg at all.
older, like, my body's ability to enjoy things that are nice it's just falling away. Like for me, chocolate, fucking love chocolate. It makes me feel ill as shit. I get indigestion. I feel fucking terrible. So basically eating a chocolate egg is an exercise in trying to stop myself from eating too much. And too much is not very much. And, but I fucking love the chocolate and then I feel ill. And so basically, I'd rather not be near it.
Right. There is no egg that,
Normal egg. Chicken egg.
just a normal egg for me.
Thank you for reminding me about the joys of Easter with this real egg.
Yeah.
I think there's something psychological about the curvature of the chocolate that makes it taste better. Like if you get like a
Surface area thing.
like a normal dairy milk egg, I don't know if that's a standard thing, but like just that normal kind of chocolate that you just get from Cadbury's in general. If I have a bar of that, it's not that great, but if I have fragments of an egg, I'll be eating it for like a week or two after Easter and it just tastes better.
I think it's the whisper effect. Like it's just the sheer amount of surface area that your tongue is interfacing with.
That's the creepiest way.
See, so yeah, I think we were talking, this is really a question about dream eggs.
Let me interface my tongue with that.
Oh, God. Oh, that's going to end up as someone's text message to me. The question is obviously about a dream egg, and I was just thinking, and I almost said something stupid because I've never done that on this podcast before, which is that obviously if my dream Easter egg would be a big mini egg, but is that not just an egg?
No, it's full of chocolate, isn't it?
No, but it's, what do you call it?
Just a large chocolate egg.
But it's a mini
it's
egg.
solid.
But mini
But
egg
it's a mini egg,
constitutes
it's
a very
solid.
specific.
Oh, so you're saying the name would have to be egg.
Yeah.
Simply egg.
Yeah. Or even large egg. Like,
Yeah. I mean, an Easter egg sized egg is bigger than a traditional egg.
yeah, well,
Well, it'd be maxi egg to be
Yeah.
in
maximum
style.
egg.
Mega
yeah.
egg.
My favorite
Maybe
crisis
giga egg.
suit setting. Maximum egg.
Maybe Zeta egg.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimate egg. Omega egg. I don't know what you call it, but this is the issue because I want a very specific mini egg experience.
You,
Okay.
so
you basically
you're-
want a mini egg, but like,
It's solid
I want-
chocolate.
I want
Warm up.
to, yes, I want to have the
then-
experience that a borrower would have eating a mini egg.
Is So is the sugary shell of a mini egg, is that proportionally larger, or is it the same
Is it
thickness?
as thick? Are you
No.
having to take a chisel to this motherfucker?
If I can shoot it with a gun.
I imagine
Tom
it-
is in tears, having tried to punch it.
this is what I always imagined.
Smashed it against my face. It was the one time I decided to do this.
This is what I always imagined that the dinosaur eggs in Jurassic Park tasted like.
Yeah, I imagine it's
Like a
sugary coating.
Yeah, exactly. Life finds a way, another. Like, yeah, I think I would actually want it to have roughly the same thickness, because otherwise you're going to have some kind of like marzipan or something under there just to give you a bit of like buffer.
Give.
Same thickness in absolute terms or relative terms?
In absolute terms. So the
Yeah.
thickness of the sugar shell
Yeah, you don't want
would
to be
be
too
the
hard to
same
break.
as a mini egg. But it's just a shitload of chocolate. It's like
Solid.
it's a solid.
All the way
block,
through.
yeah.
In a way,
lung of
in these
chocolate.
terms, a coconut is the most disappointing mini egg because the shell is just like this wood stuff that you can't eat at all, and then inside there's not even chocolate. There's some weird white flesh that's not that great.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck coconuts.
The worst kind of egg. What the hell lays them anyway?
And that's all the questions we've got time for. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode of the Crate and Crowbar, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar. Thank you as ever to our Patreon supporters for supporting the podcast and by extension the spin-offs. You can find out more about the Patreon at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. We have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. And you can, if you wish, find us individually on internet service, Twitter. I am at C Thurston. That's CTHURSTEN.
I am at rotational, ROTATIONAL.
Tom.
I am at Pentadact, PENDADACT.
Thanks for listening, everybody.